I wasn't sure if you'd come. The bat signal hasn't been used in months. You've seen the papers. Can you help us?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not making any promises.
That's the spirit, Mr. Go-To replacement manager guy.
Two Bad Apples, live from the Big Apple. It's the Two Mice, live from New York City on talkSPORT.
Yeah, man, like, you know.
I was born in New York City on a Monday. It seems I was out trying to shoot by 2 to noon.
I'm not sure about that trail because we're describing it as two bad apples.
Yeah,
surely
so no.
there's only one bad apple in this particular scenario.
One bad apple don't make us. Or whose record
Yeah,
was that?
that was like a Jackson
the Osmonds
5
or
or something,
wasn't it?
Oh,
Oh yeah,
Jackson
Jackson 5.
5.
Yeah, one bad apple don't mean the whole barrel is
Yeah,
bad.
don't ruin the New York songs
Yeah.
that we're playing throughout
Yeah.
the course of the
Okay.
show, by the way. We're having a great time. We should tell people what we've been doing since we've been here.
Yes.
Because a bit of a jazzy feel to the
Yes,
show this
that's
morning,
right.
Mr. Parry.
Do they call that lounge?
The sort of lounge
I think they
lizard
call
type
it lounge,
music,
don't
yes.
they?
Lounge
That's right,
lizard
yeah.
is what I've been accused of being in the past, I have
Well,
to say. Very
and
good morning to you, by the way.
Very apt description. Very good morning to you, Mike. Not many hours since we were at these very microphones
No,
for the
indeed.
show last night. Went very well.
It did.
And particularly interested in the Palace fans this morning,
Yes.
how they feel about their new boss, because he has no doubt divided opinion. Some are saying that, he's the safe pair of hands, which the club needs now to try and steer them to safety, with a 12-point deficit to overcome at the bottom of the Premier League. But others that we've spoken to, and I think it's fair that I can speak for both of us here, saying we have our doubts
We do.
whether Roy Hodgson, at the age of 70 and with the track record of management behind him, has the skill set, really, to try and improve Palace's fortunes and rescue them.
Are we being slightly unfair to the man? Because given his disastrous reign at England, which he doesn't regard as disastrous,
No,
he
doesn't,
says
no.
they played 56 games, we only lost 7.
Yeah.
I mean, the 7 games that they lost were quite
Very
important
silly
games.
statement.
It is a silly statement. However, I suppose if you're Roy Hodgson, you're going to say, well, hang on, forget about my England career. What about my career at West Brom? What about my career at Fulham? What about my many different managerial positions in clubs around the world? What about how I set up the Swiss Academy so that they've now got a great national team and all of that? You know what I mean?
But the answer to that, again, came from fans that we've already spoken to over the last 24 hours, and that is that if you put him into a very big club like Liverpool's one of the biggest clubs in the world, won 5 European Cups, and within half a season, the view of the Liverpool board was that Mr. Hodgson wasn't able to manage a club of that size.
Right.
The other big job that he was given is the England job.
Yes.
And I'm afraid that was disastrous. So if he goes to what you'd call homely family clubs like West Bromwich Albion, like Fulham, like Swedish clubs that he's managed, and the Swiss national team.
Well, he kind of was involved with the Swiss national setup, wasn't he?
That's right. Well,
I mean,
that's what
funnily
I'm
enough,
saying,
one of the things that is one of his claims to fame is that it was Roy Hodgson that set up the way that Switzerland plays now.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
I'm sorry, I don't see Switzerland at the top of any world rankings anywhere.
No, I don't. And I think it's a fatuous claim on your CV to say, look, I've done well here, here and there, if the level of your achievement is average.
Yes.
And that's not being rude to West Brom or to Fulham, because they had glory, some glory days under Roy Hodgson, but they're not the biggest club. Now, okay, you could say, well, Palace fits the bill for him because it's a homely family club, but it's a club in crisis.
And he is from Croydon, of course.
He is from Croydon, yeah, and I'm not sure that he is the right man for a club in crisis.
Yes.
Chris Coleman had gone in there, and Chris Coleman wouldn't, because he's got a great job now with Wales, and he's got a chance of replicating the glory he had in the last tournament.
He has, although they're not yet qualified. They may not qualify.
No, they may not, I know, but I mean, is that he believes himself to be professorial.
He does.
And
I wonder about the relationships he has with some of the players, some of the individual players, because one of the things he said in the many interviews that he's given is that he doesn't really want to keep talking about the England situation, but he said this: I'm afraid all jobs tend to end sadly or badly, so when something happens, as did happen against Iceland, which is very hard to explain, it's when people are way below the form they've been showing, it's hard to take. Well, surely that's the manager's job, to make sure that they're not way below the form they've been showing.
That is such a telling statement, because as you just quite rightly say, if you're the England manager, you don't get many opportunities to put the players together and get them to excel.
Right.
So you've got to have an innate ability to get them to raise their game at a specific moment.
Well, it's a bit like what we do for a living, right? We can't just turn up and sit down and expect the show to go smoothly.
Not with you sitting there.
Well, I mean, yes, you might say that we're capable of making anything sing and making work and all of that. Yes. However, you have to sort of belt and brace embraces it, if you like, by making sure you do some research, by making sure you actually read something, by knowing what's going on.
Yes.
You can't just, like, if you're the England manager, you can't expect just to turn up with the players once every 3 months and get a good tune out.
Well, the point is, take the Iceland game. It should not have taken an England manager very much effort to get the England players to raise the game against what is regarded as a lowly footballing nation, just through the numbers that they've got, not through the talent of their players, just through the numbers of people in Iceland.
Well, I bet you can't name one member of the Iceland team.
Sigurdsson.
Sigurdsson?
Because he now plays for Everton.
Yeah, well,
that's
there you are.
it. Yeah,
that's about it.
But what I was going to say is, do the Palace fans realise that Mr. Hodgson has now got to instill that do or die, win at all costs spirit into his team for at least the next 12 games?
Well, it's a
he
bit
couldn't
like,
do it in one game against Iceland with the
No.
best English players around.
Yeah.
Is he going to be able to do it with a squad of Palace players who so far have proven themselves to be extremely average?
Well, you say that, but actually their last performance when they were out last weekend wasn't so bad. I mean, you know, they could have won the game. We had a Palace fan on last night saying they had 68% of the possession. And actually, it was the one game you might have kept Frank de Boer on for because they showed some quite good spirit. And if it wasn't for Dan missing that open goal, they would have at least got a point. But let's go back to the Iceland game, because the other thing that I found was incredible about Hodgson and his preparation with the team was that everybody knew there was a guy there who was a long throw specialist, and you should practice defending against a long throw. First long throw Iceland get, they score a goal.
They did,
and you go, well, hang on, did you not practice that?
Yeah, well, that all goes down to the daft idea of Harry Kane taking corners and all that. You tend to... See, this is what I mean about the professorial.
Yeah.
I think Mr. Hodgson sometimes says, I'm going to shock them with my,
my massive intellect.
I'm going to shock my massive intellect, and I'm smarter than the average bear, and I'm going to bring in a few tactics here that nobody expected. Well, we certainly didn't expect Harry Kane to be taking corners, because he's actually very good at heading the ball in the penalty area, because he's a centre-forward.
Nobody expects the vanishing position.
And then, as you quite rightly say, and to face up to the long throw expert, what I'm going to do, my boys are not going to mark anybody who might receive that ball 30 yards from the touchline.
Yes.
It's ludicrous.
Exactly right. And I think he's also gone a long way. We had quite a few tweets last night on the show talking about how some people have never forgiven him for his performance as England manager, particularly towards the end. And particularly at the end where he wouldn't come in, when he came to the press conference after having to be persuaded for about an hour and a half by the FA.
He did.
Because he felt like he didn't have to answer to anyone.
What am I
and
doing
think
here?
That kind of arrogance is what people don't like about him.
Yes, I totally agree. He seems to believe. I mean, do you remember just before he got the England job, and he'd had his unfortunate experience at Liverpool, but then he had a couple of good clubs, obviously West Brom, Fulham. But he then kept referring. This comes from our friends in Fleet Street. At every press conference then, not necessarily on the record, he kept referring to the fact that I'm a football man. I'm a football man,
Yeah.
He would look reporters in the eyes, and ask them a question. He'd say, I'm a football man. And what he was really saying was, you don't really understand what I understand about football.
That's right.
So this is
you're being rather impertinent by even asking me about it.
Yes, that's right. This is the professorial attitude again. Don't you understand how deeply I understand football? I'm an expert. I'm a football man.
Yeah.
You're not, my boy. You're a scribbler. You know what I mean? It was that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and again, it's the arrogance that people don't like. But I think we should get some Crystal Palace fans on the phone, because they'll be going to the game. Crystal Palace against Southampton. It's the early kick-off. Would you like to give out the non-mangled-mouth version of the number?
I certainly will. Okay, well, Louis, thank you very much indeed for your contribution. You sound like a very frustrated Palace fan, but that will be the order of the day.
Well, let's see whether Roy Hodgson can somehow shake it up into something worthy of Crystal Palace fans, because 4 games, no goals whatsoever. It's not a very good start. Let's talk to John Solaki, who knows a bit about scoring goals for Crystal Palace. More than 200 games, of course, that he played for the club. John, very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, John.
Morning, guys.
Do you think Louis is right that Christian Benteke is not good enough for Crystal Palace?
It's not a case he isn't good enough. I mean, the guy's got pedigree and he can score goals. I just don't think he's come with the right mind frame. You need to work hard. I think that's the first requirement, first ingredient for any striker, is to work hard. And he's a leader, and he's a top class player. He's played right up there with Villa and Liverpool, and he's come to Palace. And although he scored goals at times, I mean, his goal record's great, but I think just his body language isn't great. I think he needs to dominate. He needs to be that senior player, that leading figure.
But John, I don't understand. How can a player not work hard? It's his job. I mean, if his job was as a road sweeper, you've got to sweep up what's on the road, and you apply yourself to making sure there's no litter. So a footballer's job, if you're a striker, is to put every ounce of effort in your body into trying to score goals. Why would anybody who's a professional footballer do anything different?
Mark, it's scary. That's a great question. Why don't they? I generally think sometimes they get into a comfort zone and think they are trying, they are training hard, they are playing hard, they are giving enough. And, the clear indication of the people who will tell you, the fans. The fans will tell you, they pay their money to go and watch, and they'll say, did you put in a shift for me? Have you shown me something? Have you lifted my spirits? Have you picked me up? Was I right to pay my money to come and watch you play? And if they say no, then that's the yardstick. And at the moment, the fans are saying he's not doing enough. And,
right.
You know,
does that spread through the team then, John? Does that spread through the team? Do the midfield players say, what's the point of working hard to supply this man when he doesn't want to do it himself?
When you've got a successful team, right, you've got people that are prepared to say things to each other. Now, in that dressing room, we used to have Mile Jedinak and Damien Delaney still in there, but at their height, they would tell you. They would tell you if it wasn't good enough. They'll tell you if you could have done more. They would tell you into your face, and you would have it out. And that is the problem now. I don't think enough players, there's big enough characters in there. We haven't got the leaders in that team that are going to grab each other by the scruff of the neck and say, hey, come on, we're going to give a shift today, because Selhurst Park was a fortress, and when you went there, you went into that rubbish little dressing room that you hated. You came out, the ultras were in your face, it was singing, and then the guys were like that, come on, we'll get in your face, and you've got to bring a game today if you're going to get a result here at Selhurst Park. And now it's too easy. We're playing, we try and play out the back, and no real identity. We've lost our DNA of getting up and at people, and that's really Benteke. He's got to get up, get in people's faces, get his elbows up, be hard to play against, hold it up, stick the ball up in the air, and I'll win the headers, and we'll get the knockdowns, and we'll box it in. But so that's what Roy's got to go back to. He's got to go back.
And can Roy do that? Is he that kind of manager? Because I get the impression from his time at England, certainly. I'm not talking from when he was at Fulham or at West Brom, but when he was at England, he had this, as Mike Parry said, kind of professorial way of talking, where he was sort of talking about the theory of football and how important it is to have a certain mindset and all of that. But he didn't strike me as a guy that puts the fear of God into players.
No, I do think we've got Roy at the wrong time. Roy's 70 now. And the England thing's left a little bit.
It's a very diplomatic way of putting things, John. Got him at the wrong time. You mean that it's we've employed a knackered sort of product?
You said it. I didn't say that.
Yeah, well, I'm being a bit unkind, perhaps, but I mean, no.
Well, let me put it to you this way. I've got Gabriel has tweeted us here. He said, hiring Roy Hodgson is like getting one of those soaps, hiring an actor who was famous 30 years ago and has done nothing since. Doomed to failure.
Yeah, the J.R. Ewing of Crystal Palace.
I can't disagree with that either.
No.
He's vastly experienced. He's a great guy. He's got Ray Lewington there. I'd love to have seen, I saw Jamie Carragher tweet about why not get Neville in there with Ray and maybe Roy. Yeah. Roy should be mentoring a younger, hungrier guy. I just feel someone. The Palace job needs energy. It needs someone to come in and.
It does.
What we've had is your Dowies. We've had your Holloways, your Warnocks. We've had Pardew and Pulis, and then we had Sam. Who knew the English game and who were tough, talking, hard-working. English British managers. And we tried to change the DNA. Brought Frank de Boer in. What did he win? 3-4 titles at Ajax and went to Inter Milan.
4, I think, on the trot. Yeah. The other thing is, John.
I mean, the guy's a winner.
Yeah. And the other thing is, John.
He won as many titles with Ajax as he lost games with Crystal Palace.
He did. Yeah, he did a brilliant record. But the other thing is, John. I know it sounds ridiculous, but the first picture I saw of Roy Hodgson when he went back to Crystal Palace is he's got a pair of shorts on. He's running around on the pitch. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's laughable to young men aged about 26 or 27 to see a guy who really looks as though he's just entered the Buckler petition. If you see what I mean.
Very harsh.
I mean, do you know what? Fair play to Roy. He's got energy. He wants to do the job. He's thrown his hat in the ring. It's a bit of a curveball for me to. I thought Frank should have got more of a chance. I thought he wasn't backed in the transfer market early enough to get the players out and get the ones in that he wants. But you stand still in this league and, you struggle. You've got to go in and buy 4 or 5 quality players. The squad isn't strong enough. So, look, Roy's got to go in there and work magic. He needs Sacco back, but he can't rush him. He needs Zaha back, who is fantastic for Palace. And he needs the rest to pull their fingers out. It's the same. Players get managers a sack and, they weren't playing for Frank, and that's why ultimately, Steve Parish and especially the American boys don't get relegation. They can't be in that position. It's not part of the business model. So it's ruthless. So if they're in any doubt, they've got to change it and try and stay up just on the business front.